Hey, what is up, nerds, geeks, and collectors alike? Today we are taking a look at the Transformers Studio Series number 34, the Transformers Dark of the Moon Leader Class, Megatron. And this Megatron is a third reimagining of the character in the Bayformers films. This is Megatron's appearance in the third movie. That's because his previous encounter with Optimus Prime at the end of the second movie, and we get to see him now in figure form. And first, let's take a close look at the packaging. Here we have the standard Studio Series packaging. Here's a Transformers and an artwork of Megatron number 34. Here we have another artwork of Megatron along with Igor right there. And here we have at the back our obligatory CGI product shots. Here we have Megatron as well as his alt mode and as well as Igor. And at the other side here we have a headshot of Megatron. And there he is, battle damage with his cowl right there. And at the top, nothing more than just the logo of the Transformers Dark of the Moon. And at the bottom, here we have our legal mumbo jumbo as well as the UPC. And I got this figure at Landmark. I got it for about $60, and that is the retail selling price of Transformers Studio Series Leader Class here in the Philippines. And here we have Megatron outside of packaging, and with his diorama, his African camp right there. Pretty cool. So far so good. And I gotta say, even though I have some gripes about the figure, I still think he is a pretty good figure form representation of Megatron. And taking Megatron out of there long before we take a look at the diorama, here we have Megatron in his African camp, the camp that is set up in hiding from Nest and as well as the Autobots right here. As you can see, pretty cool. Here we have the Transformers Dark of the Moon. And here we have number 34 Studio Series. And at the side we have Transformers. And that's about it. And I gotta say, pretty cool print right here. Nice quality. I like it. I like the choice that Hasbro made in order to incorporate the diorama with this figure. And here we have Megatron. But before we take a look at Megatron himself, let's take a look at his minion right here.
Oh, my master, such a brilliant scheme.
Igor is just this small figure. He has about 3 points of articulation. As you can see here, his arms are on a ball joint, and his leg is kind of just one piece. But the details and the painting and sculpting of this minifigure is really cool. As you can see right here, his arm is on a ball joint as well as this. And if you move one leg, the other one moves with it. So that's why I say this is just a 3-point articulation. Only has 3 points of articulation, that is. But overall, it's pretty cool.
So, when Sentinel left Cybertron,
He was meant to rendezvous with me here on Earth before fate waylaid us both. The only way to revive him, we needed Prime and his Matrix.
He is made of this blackish gray plastic and with the added green and silver. That's about it. And let's take a look at Megatron's cowl right here. As you can see, pretty rugged, pretty rough surface if I do say so myself, which is basically, I think, the right kind of material. It's definitely something that feels like you can find in the middle of a desert, or at least at a salvage that you can salvage, some sort of tarp. And since we already took a look at his other accessories, might as well take a look at his shotgun also. His shotgun is made of the same plastic as Igor's, this blackish gray plastic with some painted silver right here, but you can't deny that the painting is pretty cool, as well as the sculpting. It's really the sculpting that brings out the details in this figure, as you can see right here. Pretty cool. I like it personally. And here we have Megatron, and as you can see, pretty cool. He has this battle damage effect to him right here, especially on his head. There it is with the red paint. The figure is really appealing, especially at the front. I like the sculpting and the overall mold of the figure. If there's anything that I find to complain about, it's the application of this brown or bronze paint, because it kind of looks like somebody spilled coffee on him right here, as you can see. I like the mold, don't get me wrong, as well as the sculpting and the details. I just think that they could have done better in terms of painting right here, since it kind of disappears at the figure. It breaks the illusion that is rusted overall. And at the back here we have a, wouldn't say a kibble, since it tries to hide the kibble, but right here it's Kibble Mania at his feet. The back is good, at least they tried, but the feet is just pure kibble. But still, I'd choose this over the Transformers Dark of the Moon Voyager class Megatron, the very first Dark of the Moon figure of Megatron. And moving on to articulation, as you can see here, he can barely look side to side. That's due to the kibble on his back, and he can look up that far, and he cannot look down at all. His arm can go out that far, but then again, the kibble right here, entire 360, as well as he has some sort of butterfly joint, but that's more for the transformation. But since it's strategically placed there, I'm gonna count that as articulation. He has a double jointed elbow, which is again more for the transformation, but since it's strategically placed there, I'm gonna count it as articulation. And his hands are on two hinges right here. You can move them separately. These two pieces are made of soft rubbery plastic, as you can see. But for the other arm, even though it is also on a hinge, it's just one solid piece. As you can see here, if you move that, the entire arm goes, and that's about it. Megatron does not incorporate any sort of articulation at the torso, and at the feet he can kick up that far and move his feet that far. He has no thigh swivel, but what he does have is a upper knee swivel right here, and he has a double hinge at the foot, one right here and here. As you can see, you can move that there and move this here, but that's more for his transformation in terms of robot mode. And he does not incorporate any articulation at the feet right here. I guess you can count this as a pivot, but that's more for the transformation. And that's about it for the articulation of the Transformers Studio Series Dark of the Moon Megatron. And moving on to the size comparison, as you can see here, Megatron can stand a little below 7 inches. But what you can do is, if you straighten the feet right here, so you just straighten these pieces, then goes to the other leg, right there, you get him to stand up straight like that. He reaches about, let me get the trusted ruler, it stands about 8 inches now, right there. because previously he can only stand about 7.5 inches. Now he can stand entirely 8 inches. Now let's bring out Transformers Studio Series Dark of the Moon Leader Class Optimus Prime. Of course, he is in Voyager scale. And there they are, looking pretty cool. I think Megatron is a little too big. That is why I tend to pop his knees back right here. Especially right here. There we go. And there you go. Even if you do this, even if I do this, I personally believe that Megatron is a little too big. Even with his kibble, I think that he should be a little shorter. I'm not saying that he should be the same size as Optimus, but I think the height difference is a little too big between them. And that's about it for the size comparison. Now let's get this guy transformed. here we have Megatron in his Mac Granite alternate truck mode. This thing looks heavily modified and it is quite accurate to the real life Mac Granite that appeared in Transformers Dark of the Moon. Very Mad Max-ish with the spikes and the tarp right here. And as you can see, even with the paint, I like the paint, especially in the vehicle form. I like the paint more right here than in the robot mode, but much like the robot mode, it's not distributed nicely as I like it to be. As you see here, Megatron does roll pretty nicely. All 10 of his wheels roll very nicely with no problem at all, especially on a flat surface, much like my setup right here, as you can see, and moving that back and right here, meaning that you transform the figure properly with no problem at all. And that's about it. Moving on to the size comparison, let's get out the trusted ruler once more. And as you can see, Megatron stands about, let me see here, 2.5 inches tall. He is about 2 inches wide right here, and he is from the tip at the back right here. In truck mode, he is about 11.5 inches, but if you include the spikes right here, especially at the tip of the spikes, you can get him about 12.5 inches, and that's about it. And let's bring out Transformers Studio Series. Transformers Dark of the Moon Voyager class Sentinel Prime.
The city is secure. The humans cannot stop us. As the afternoon falls, this is the victory I promised you so many years ago, where we rebuild Cybertron together. I have deigned to work with you that our planet may survive. I will never work for you. And you would be wise to remember the difference.
And of course, how can we make a Megatron size comparison without the one and only Transformers Studio Series Transformers Dark of the Moon leader class Optimus Prime, without his trailer, that is. And as you can see here, let's do a comparison. Sentinel Prime is more than half of the size of Megatron in terms of alternate mode right here. It's about, I think, 75% of Megatron. And right here, I think truck-wise, Optimus Prime is bigger. As you can see, Optimus Prime reaches this point, while Megatron is only a little too small at the back, at least. As you can see here, Optimus Prime is a lot bigger, or should I say longer, that is. Without the back part of Megatron, Optimus would definitely be bigger.
This is my planet. No. We need a truce. All I want is to be back in charge. Besides, who would you be without me, Prime?
So what can I say about the figure? I think the figure is a good figure form representation of the Dark of the Moon Megatron. But my only problem with this is the distribution of kibble as well as the distribution of paint. But overall, it's a pretty good figure to have. You can see that Hasbro really tried to give a more accurate Dark of the Moon Megatron. I wouldn't say they failed, they actually did a good job, or at least a better job than what they did prior. Then again, there's still room for improvement, but for me personally, I don't mind it as much. I think I get what they were trying to go for. If they can compromise the entire figure to look good, might as well just do it from the front where it really matters. And I'm not saying the back or the side doesn't matter at all, it does, but there are just times where beggars can't be choosers. But still, as a figure of its own, it's pretty good. If you get a chance to get this, and if you are a fan of the Dark of the Moon movie, sure, you should definitely get this figure, since Dark of the Moon is where characters, or at least the Cybertronian characters, it was the movie where they stood out the most. That is why in terms of Bayformers, it is one of the superior movies from the franchise. And that's about it. So if you like this video, drop a like and subscribe for more content. It would really help me out. Till next time, see ya!